All right. Are you ready? Okay. It is now. It is now 7:04, and I am calling to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Indian Prairie School District 204 on Monday, May 5th, 2025. Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. Karubas?
Here.
Ms. Gentz?
Here.
Mr. Rising?
Here.
Ms. Jane?
Here.
And Ms. Deming?
We have a quorum. Mr. Karubas, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next regular board meeting will be held on Monday, May 19th. We have several board salutes today. Ms. Gentz.
All right, I do have two. 3 District 204 students honored at the National PTA Reflections level. The board salutes Mishka Pataniak, a 5th grader at White Eagle Elementary, for her music piece, Shine, which won an Award of Excellence in the 2024-25 National PTA Reflections Arts Program. Varsan Raja, a sophomore at Matia Valley, earned a Merit Award for his film Discovering Color. And Anisha Campbell, a 6th grader at Crone Middle School, earned a Merit Award in Music with her piece Imperfections Stay. For over 55 years, the Reflections program has encouraged students from across the country to express themselves through the arts. These 3 District 204 students were among 27 from Illinois that had entries sent to the National PTA for review. Congratulations on this amazing accomplishment. Dr. Talley named 2025 Administrator and Educator of the Year by the DuPage Regional Office of Education. Yes, before I say more, let's... You knew we had to. The board salutes Superintendent Dr. Adrian Talley for being named the 2025 Administrator of the Year and Educator of the Year by the DuPage County Regional Office of Education. Dr. Talley has shown strong and steady leadership since joining Indian Prairie School District 204 in 2020. He has focused on academic growth, student well-being, and equity for all learners. His work has helped raise student achievement and expand mental health support across the district. This honor celebrates his deep commitment to students, family, and staff. Congratulations, Dr. Talley.
I think I have to blame Lisa on that one.
All right. Mr. Karubas.
Naperville Writers Group High School Writing Prize. The board salutes Neuqua Valley seniors Alicia Belil and Daniel Servinoff for their outstanding writing achievements. Alicia was recognized for her poem, Home of the Resilient Olives, and Daniel for his short story, House at the End of the Universe. Each student received a $300 award, a certificate of achievement, and had their work published in Rivulets, a journal at the Naperville Writers Group. Congratulations, Alicia and Daniel.
Ms. Dumming.
Student Ambassador Student Election Judge Program. The board salutes students from Neuqua Valley and Waubonsee Valley High Schools who participated in the Will County Clerk's Student Ambassador and Election Judge Program. These students generously gave their time to support the community and take part in the election process. Thank you for your valuable contributions to our community.
You want to do the rest of them? And then
Okay.
just-
All right. Mr. Rising.
I've got two. Do you want me to do them both in a row?
Yeah.
Okay. Corporate sponsorship, National Merit Scholarship winners. The National Merit Scholarship Corporation released the names of the first group of winners of the 70th Annual National Merit Scholarship Program. Approximately 830 distinguished high school seniors have won corporate-sponsored National Merit Scholarship Awards, financed by about 124 corporations, company foundations, and other business organizations. 2 District 204 high school seniors were named this year's competition. AJ Taja Kavori from Mattia Valley and Kavita Rajan from Nequa Valley. Congratulations to AJ and Kavita. Naperville Women's Club Young Adult Art Contest winners. The board salutes the winners of the Naperville Women's Club Young Adult Art Contest. Nequa Valley sophomore Lillian Dillon earned Best of Show. Mattia Valley senior Anusha Conjetti won first place in the painting and drawing category, while senior Rachel Lai was awarded second place. Third place was awarded to Waubonsie Valley junior Addison Frank in the same category. The Allie Pifo Award went to Nequa Valley junior McKenna Brudell. The students' artwork was judged on concept, creativity, composition, originality, emotional impact, presentation, and execution. I will say I went to this. It was all 5 high schools in 203 and 204. 204 cleaned up, which was great. But the artwork was just spectacular, and students from all 3 of our high schools were in the top award positions. So congratulations.
Ms. Jane.
2025 U.S. Presidential Scholars. The board salutes the 19 District 204 students who were recently named 2025 U.S. Presidential Scholar candidates. From Mattia Valley High School is Ajay Kavuri. From Nequa Valley High School, Neil Chawla, Aditya Rakshit, Andrew Wan, Andy Yu, and Alexander Zhao. And from Waubonsie Valley High School, it's Mansha Asudani, Sajiv Harikrishnan, Yagnesh Lokesh, Anjali Madeshwaran, Sanvi Mangati, Rita Majid, Shruti Mutia, Vikram Narsinha, Ananya Nayak, Wing Ing, Aryaman Patodia, Prakriti Senthil, and Akshat Shivachidambara. Scholars are chosen for strong academics, top test scores, leadership, and service. Finalists will be honored in Washington, D.C. this June. 3 of whom have now been identified as semifinalists from Waubonsie Valley are Sajiv Harikrishnan and Sanvi Mangatnit, and from Nequa Valley, Aditya Rakshit. Congratulations to all the students for this remarkable achievement.
Ms. Dumming, do you have one more?
We are so excited this evening to recognize our students in the Grow Your Own Teacher program. The board salutes the District 204 seniors in the Grow Your Own Teacher program who have dedicated themselves to becoming the next generation of educators. The program is a cohort of over 100 high school students who participate in engaging and real-world experiences to prepare them for a potential career in education. The program is open to any high school student interested in an education-related career. Our goal is to foster a passion for education and encourage these students to return to become teachers at Indian Prairie School District 204. When we call your name, please come up to the front to be recognized and remain for a group photo. Caitlin Amato. London Askew. Ava Gray Bauer. Asher Booth. Robert Caswick. Samara Chiridel. Kelly Klish. Ella Dabezek. Madison DeCastris. Madeline Fink. Caitlin Fitzgerald. Kate Harris. Kendall Hatton. Olivia Hernandez. Michelle Herrera. Abigail Hervey. Megan Kessler. Nishitha Manahur. Robert Matuzak. Ellie Panish. Samantha Philo. Zamora Pisano. Arushi Patdar. Addie Shimikowicz. Bella Sieben. Avery Smith. Kayla Thomas. Samantha Bertilak. And Melina Williamson. Did I get everybody? Is there anybody that I missed? Come on, guys.
All the students are taller than me.
I'd like to have one more round of applause for those fantastic accomplishments, including our superintendent. Okay, next up we have a representative report for Waubonsee from Emily Shield.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here again. My name is Emily Shield, and I am here today to represent Waubonsee Valley High School. As a Warrior, I'm proud to report that our Waubonsee community continues to thrive and provide many outstanding experiences to our students. First, we have a few giant successes with clubs and activities. Our Cyber Patriots program had 3 teams placed in the top platinum tier at the state competition. Our math team had 2 students take first at regionals in the oral competition, and 8 other students take first in written exam competitions from Algebra 1 through Calculus 3. FCCLA had 35 students advance on to state, and at state they earned 3 first-place medals, 12 second-place medals, and 4 third-place medals. This gives Waubonsee Valley FCCLA one of the top positions in the state. BPA had 290 members this year, and 61 of them advanced on to nationals. This is just a few of our highlights, where 56% of our student population is involved in clubs and activities, and regularly showcasing excellent competing at local and national competitions. In terms of athletics, Waubonsee Valley Spring Athletics are cruising along with a number of our sports beginning conference tournaments and the IHSA state tournament. Badminton wrapped up a successful regular season last week and will head into the state playoffs with high hopes. Boys and girls track and field have had competitive seasons. The girls will compete in their DVC championship on Thursday, May 8th, and the boys will host the DVC championships on Thursday, May 15th. Boys and girls water polo, lacrosse, and softball all look to complete a successful 2025 campaign in the upcoming weeks as they head into the IHSA state playoffs. All programs have high expectations headed into the state tournament. Boys tennis is having one of the most successful seasons in program history and are currently undefeated in the season, and most recently knocked off tennis powerhouse New Trier in non-conference action. Boys tennis, volleyball, and baseball are all currently in first place in the DuPage Valley Conference headed into the final weeks of conference play. All programs hope to bring home a conference championship in their respective sport. We look forward to finishing off the spring season on a high note in these remaining couple of weeks. Go Warriors! Regarding our academics, we are currently administering AP tests. This year, we have 1,237 students taking 2,310 exams in 30 subject areas. In late April, the counseling department hosted Junior Pre-College Planning Night. This was an evening event that reviewed the college search and application process. It was well attended by students and their families. We are looking forward to Green and Gold Night this week and are excited to honor our senior student successes. That's all for the Waubonsie Valley Board Report. Thank you, and as always, go Warriors.
Thank you. So next up is our spotlight, and this meeting it's for Builta Elementary. So we're going to have a presentation by Adrian Morgan, principal, and Carol Hess, the ELL teacher. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Hello. I'm Adrian Morgan, principal at Builta School, and with me,
I am Carol Hess. I am an ELL teacher at Builta.
So here this evening, we're here to talk about our school improvement plan, and one of our goals is our social emotional learning goal, which has a focus on belonging. We understand the importance of making sure that all of our students and our families feel valued and a part of our community. We want to make sure that all families have the chance to see themselves in our LMC books, read alouds, lessons taught in our classrooms, and our monthly cultural hallway displays. In addition, we give our students the opportunity to share about themselves, their culture, and their families through school projects, which include students talking to their families about their different traditions, beliefs, and heritage. Examples of these include second grade's project of How I Got My Name, third grade's autoethnography project, and fifth grade's culture project. Students also have the chance to share this information with their classmates. I'm kind of the introduction here to let you know why Ms. Hess has our multicultural clubs in our building. We want to connect it to our school improvement plan. Our families also have the chance to sign up to decorate our front office display cases to share about their holidays, celebrations, and cultural traditions in their family. Carol Hess has been a very important part of this school improvement plan and our sense of belonging by hosting two important after-school clubs within our community. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Carol.
Okay, thank you so much, Adrian. So how the Multicultural Club continues each year, there's different parts of the club for different grade levels. So second and third grade, we are doing some cooking, some dancing, anything that the children and the parents want to share with us about their culture. So the students, all the students in the grades second through third get invited, and they can participate in this activity. And then along with the permission slip, there is a form for parents to fill out if they want to come in and share. So we have done so many things. Here are some of the examples that we have done this year. We made Brazilian cheese bread. I went to Brazil and I brought this back and taught the students how to do it as I lived there for 12 days and learned a lot from the culture with the people. And then we also learned about Italy. We did some paintings by Michelangelo where you can see a student laying on their back because that's how he painted the Sistine Chapel. We made, we took a trip to Costa Rica and made ox carts. And that is one of their cultural displays. They used to, in the olden times, they would carry all of their things through town. So I wanted to show the children the transportation. They decorated their transportation, and they got to decorate their ox cart in their culture, however they wanted to do it. We celebrated Diwali with many treats from India. Families taught us how to make different treats. And then we also made rangolis outside to welcome. We also learned about the Basant Kite Festival from Pakistan. So you can see we've been very busy. And I could go on, but at this point, I think we also did tortillas in Mexico. We learned Turkish painting from a family. So we have been very blessed at Builta. The parents want to teach us. The children want to learn more. And they constantly are saying, can my mom come? Can they teach us? So I wish that we had more time to extend the club all year long. The little bit that we do for the 12 hours, they just want more. They wish to stay longer. So then the 4th and 5th graders said, well, what about us? As they would come to me and say, I did your club, but now what about us? And I said, well, do you have suggestions? That's how this was born of the club, of the book club was born that way. And then they said, we are getting all these new students, Miss Hess. How do we help them? I'm like, oh, well, here are some books. Mrs. DeFarno, our LMC director, has shown that these are some of the books that talk about helping a new kid into the school system. Which ones do you guys want? And they're like, oh, we know this Kelly Yang. We want to do her. I'm like, okay, great. So we just ordered the books, and we would sit and we would read and discuss it, and how can we help in our school to make new students feel welcome, and what can we do? And it was so powerful just coming from them. So I was very proud to sponsor both of those.
Well, thank you for sharing all that you're doing to welcome the rich culture that we have in our community. And I'm sure these students are thrilled to be able to celebrate showing off things from their background and their culture. So thank you.
We're excited we have the opportunity, and we're excited our parents want to be involved. So
Yes.
thank you very much for your time tonight.
When you do the Brazilian cheese bread making again,
Yes, would you like an invitation?
I'm expecting an invitation.
Okay, so next year I will send you
Please
one.
do.
Don't
All
worry.
right.
You know, I didn't even think I'd have time to dole out samples. And which country? You know, there was a lot that I gave, and there's a lot that we study. And next time. Next time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have our recognition of our Scholastic Bowl state champions.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. Scholastic Bowl, which is requires teams of students to compete 5-on-5 against other teams, answering toss-up questions and bonus questions on various topics from fine arts, math, science, history, and literature to current events and pop culture. The team meets weekly, participating in conference matches as well as tournaments hosted by the Illinois High School Scholastic Bowl Coaches Association. After placing second at IHSA State last year, Waubonsie's team made it a personal mission to return this year, and they did with a vengeance. They started off with another second place win at this season's kickoff tournament with an 8-1 record, then led by seniors. The team went on a tear with an undefeated conference record, including the regular season with a 600-110 score against notable conference rival Naperville North High School. Their path to the state series came with wins at regionals and sectionals over Bolingbrook and IMSA, before finally rounding out their perfect 23-0 season with the championship title at IHSA State, defeating Stevenson High School 450-410. And so now I'd like to recognize those who are here tonight. And when I call your name, please come forward, and we'll hand off a diploma, a certificate to you. Yan Yin Chattopadhyay. Viram Narasimha. Ishan Manor, Daniel Dimnoth, and those are the ones who are here tonight. And we're very happy that the city of Aurora recognized them as well and made a night, a day every year, which will be the Waubonsie Scholastic Bowl Day. So we congratulate all of them.
It is now time for public comment, and 60 minutes is allowed for public comment. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups, and as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comment represents the voice and opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from the board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by an administrator as appropriate. Although this is not required, it is helpful for the board to know whether the comments and concerns we hear are being raised by residents. So we ask that you state if you live in the district and if you currently have children in our schools. We have one speaker tonight, Jack Pye.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Talley, and community members. My name is Jack Pye, and I'm a student at Matia Valley High School. I'm here tonight to invite you to a student debate event on May 15th at Yellow Box Community Church. 20 students will compete in a one-on-one debate round with a guest speaker presenting before the final match. The winners of the final debate will receive a $500 prize each, and attending students will have a chance to win a $200 raffle. This event promotes leadership, critical thinking, and civic engagement, and we hope to fill 250 seats with students, families, educators, and community leaders like yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are now moving to our consent agenda and superintendent report. We will start with the superintendent report. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue, members of the Board of Education, Indian Prairie community. I want to start my comments by thanking all of the volunteers who have given their time and energy to our students and schools over this school year. We recently had Volunteer Appreciation Week, and I want everyone to know that our schools are as good as they are in part to the great volunteers who spend time supporting our students and our organization. Last week, we celebrated Springbrook Elementary School for having the most volunteer hours this year with more than 8,800 hours. We also celebrated Ms. Catherine Izzo with 355 hours of volunteer time, which was the most individual volunteer hours. Finally, we celebrated the Volunteer of the Year, Ms. Sarah Phillips Stevens. To the mothers, fathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, businesses, and all who volunteer, thank you very much. Next week is Teacher Appreciation Week. I want to say to all of our teachers how grateful we are for what you do day in and day out. The daily life of a teacher is very complex with multiple layers. Thousands of decisions are made each day a teacher works in his or her classroom, from helping students learn academically and helping our students grow and develop socially and emotionally. There are a myriad of things that teachers do each day to ensure the success of our students. I put our teachers up against any in the state and the nation. I have seen our teachers in person, and I'm inspired by what they do. Thank you. May 10th is School Nurses Day. Our nurses support our students in their physical health and support their emotional health. We have a cadre of nurses who demonstrate daily a commitment to our children and to each other. When our children are hurt, our nurses help mend them. When our children are not feeling well, our nurses provide a steady hand to help them feel better. Their work sometimes goes unseen, but it is so vital. I thank all of our healthcare workers in our schools for the service they provide to our students and our families. May is Asian American Pacific Islanders Month. It's a time when we celebrate the contributions made by Asian Americans in our country and for the world. Schools in their own way are celebrating this month. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. As a district, we have continued our support for mental health through the work done in the schools and the mental health clinics we have established. We are still offering our free therapy sessions for students. I'm so proud of our third annual Mental Health Symposium we had in March. We know that mental health is a concern that many of us have. I'm glad we continue to address this concern in very measurable ways. And finally, I would like the Board of Ed to approve the appointment of Mr. Brian Zerfus as principal of Nancy Young Elementary School effective July 1, 2025. He is replacing Ms. Erin Rodriguez, who will be moving to a different school next year. Mr. Zerfus is coming to Indian Prairie from Canelan School District, where he's currently the principal of McDowell Elementary School. He has served in that capacity since 2022. He also has served as an assistant principal and an elementary teacher. During his interviews, he talked a lot about how he would establish relationships with staff, students, and parents. He wants students to know that there is someone who cares about them in their building. He wants staff to know that he will be there to support them in their work. Finally, he knows there is a need for strong partnerships with the parents. He's excited about this opportunity. He and his wife are here tonight. So, Ms. Donahue, I will turn the meeting back to you.
I need a motion to approve Brian Zerfus as the principal at Young Elementary School as presented.
As a proud prior Young Elementary parent, I'll make a motion that the Board of Education approve Brian Zerfus as principal of Young Elementary School as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rising.
Yes.
Ms. Gentz.
Yes.
Mr. Karubas.
Yes.
Ms. Jane.
Yes.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
And Ms. Donahue.
Aye. The motion passes. Congratulations.
Good evening. First and foremost, this is my wife, Megan.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So we have the night off. We have a babysitter for this occasion. So it is a Monday night date night. You can't pass those up. But on behalf of myself and my family, I'm thrilled to be joining the District 204 and so proud of the opportunity and truly humbled to not only be joining the district, but to be joining Nancy Young Elementary School. Throughout this process, I've heard so many wonderful things about the district and especially about the school and its rich tradition of success and achievement, and I'm looking forward to continuing that on as its next principal. So thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes. Next, we move to our consent agenda item. I need a motion and a second for consent agenda items E through N.
I move that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items E through N as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Jane.
Yes.
Mr. Karubas.
Yes.
Ms. Gentz.
Yes.
Ms. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. Rising.
Yes.
And Ms. Deming.
Aye.
The motion passes. All right. Next, we move to our action items. I need a motion and a second to approve the 2025-2026 school board meeting calendar.
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2025-2026 school board meeting calendar as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Jane.
Yes.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
Mr. Karubas?
Yes.
Ms. Gentz?
Yes.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
And Mr. Rising?
Yes.
Motion passes. We will now have an exciting presentation from Matt Shipley regarding budget and forecast update.
Yeah, no. Well, good evening, members of the Board of Education. We did go just under 2 hours the last time we talked, so I know we have some group of students over here that's probably hoping we do it a little quicker this time. But good evening. As Board President Donahue mentioned, I'm here this evening to review our updated financial forecast and budget presentation. This is a continuation of the discussion we started at the board meeting in February. It's in line with Board Policy 4-10 as well as Strategic Plan Priority Number 4. And I'll point out we will be covering some things that are in line with the Vision 2030 document, also adopted by this board, also that part of that document that was priority number 4. So the agenda for this evening is to first start with just kind of reviewing the highlights of that presentation in February. I'll cover some updates we've made to our budget and forecast since then, both for our operating and non-operating funds. I do want to review the ISB recognition status and some other financial metrics that we monitor in the business office and that I know our board has historically expected the district's budget to meet. And so we will kind of cover those a little bit and talk about how we are in line with those with that status. We'll talk about our updated fund balance projections as well as a recommendation for a transfer we'd like to include in next year's budget. And then I'll finalize that with a summary of the information, next steps needed to adopt this budget, and then we'll be available for any questions. First, just starting a review of February's forecast. If you remember, we did show that current year revenues are largely in line with budget. However, in expenditures, we were exceeding the budget in several areas. With property taxes, specifically, we looked at how that continues to be the largest funding source for the district. But we are benefiting from property values and increasing, as well as new property coming online in the district, and we'll talk a little bit more about that this evening as well. State and federal funding, we forecast that to stay flat really over the next 5 years. We talked about some of the significant uncertainty facing both of those revenue sources, and again, we'll have some updates on that this evening. For the first time, we were able to present non-operating funds that were in line with our Safer, Stronger 204 referendum. And so I know that was a exciting moment for us to finally show our community and our board what some of the long-range financial plans look like with our capital project fund, as well as the bond and interest fund that supports that. Again, we'll discuss that a little bit more tonight as well. And then finally, we emphasize the need to really discuss our fund balance priorities and some of the post-referendum capital needs that we're already starting to plan for. So this evening, I'm going to start with our operating funds. As a reminder, we have 6 operating funds that are maintained by the district, and these really are the funds that support the day-to-day operations of the district. They are listed there, and I will point out these 6 funds are not impacted by the referendum that was recently passed. Those are the referendum's impact, at least its direct impact, is tied to the non-operating funds. So this is the year-to-date budget to actual through March of 2025. And again, this is largely consistent with what we presented in February, which at that time was through December. So we're now 9 months or 3 quarters through the year end. And again, we're continuing to be in line with what we showed in February. Just want to highlight a few things really quickly. Again, as mentioned, revenues continue to trend favorably towards budget across the most, if not all, of our revenue areas. But our expenditures are trending unfavorably to budget. And I'll point out salaries specifically are above budget by just over $1 million. That is a result of staffing levels being about 13 FTE or full-time equivalents above what we budgeted for this current year. Also, just highlight again, as we sort of a prelude to the fund balance discussion, we expect to finish this year with right around 38.8% of fund balance as a percentage of local revenue. That is above our current target of 25%. So as we look at kind of the current budget and we look at what we're projecting or forecasting for the next 5 years, this is what we presented in February. And I just want to bring this forward and remind you some of the key talking points we discussed then. First, we did show small deficits for 4 out of the 5 years projected, and we spent a lot of time kind of talking about the context of these deficits. And so while they're not significant, they do represent less than 1% of revenue each year. I do believe we need to address these, and we have addressed these with tonight's presentation. Again, although they were small, they are structural, showing as demonstrated by the fact that they're recurring every year. As the board knows, and has always been sort of a key trend in the district and in education in general, there's really no revenue options to close the gap. We have very limited control over our revenues, and therefore when deficits arise, it's important that we address them proactively. And then finally, again, we're going to continue to talk about some unpredictability at the state and federal level, and going into a multi-year forecast or even a 1 or 2 year forecast with projected deficits gives us less flexibility to deal with some of that uncertainty. And so here's tonight's forecast, or the most recent forecast that we're presenting from the business office. And again, as you can see, the big change here is that we're now projecting balanced budgets across the next 5 years. I'll cover some of the changes in the next slide. However, I just want to emphasize that even though we're showing balanced budgets, our ending fund balance, and specifically when you get to some of those later years, is pretty similar to where we were with that prior slide, still showing about 32% fund balance as a percent of expenditures. And so I'll cover how we're sort of able to show a balanced budget across 5 years, but still have fund balance kind of end up in the same spot. So looking at the comparison of just next fiscal year, so just fiscal year 2026, between those two forecasts, I'll just point out a few things. Key changes. First, property tax has increased from our last forecast, and that really is a result of receiving the final new property numbers from our counties. Those came in stronger than we were budgeting and anticipating, and so that has created a net increase in property tax revenues. You'll see there's some reclassification between property taxes and other local revenues. We'll talk about those in net of being about a $700,000 increase. And I'll point out that does continue going forward to all 5 years of the forecast. That is a permanent increase in property tax revenue. The second change we've made since we presented in February is really that we have added back some of the positions we were discussing reducing last year, or going into next year, excuse me. So we're now looking at a reduction from the current year of about 10 FTE total. So we were talking in February about a number in the 19 to 20 range, and we're now able to cut that in about half. That doesn't change maybe some of the long-term staffing, but at least it has some additional FTE available for next fiscal year. And then the final change that we'll cover later in this presentation, but just want to talk about, is we are now recommending a transfer to capital for next fiscal year of $12.1 million. And the focus for the spending of those funds that we're recommending is one-time funds to support technology needs. This does two things. First, it does allow us to address some of our technology challenges that I know our CTO and other administrators has shared with the board and the public in previous presentations. And the second benefit is it does provide some further stability to the expenditures over 5 years. So it does allow us to address some capital needs now and up front in a way that saves some long-term dollars, creates some efficiencies, and ultimately becomes a key driver to balancing the budget over the next 5 years. So I will move on to just share a little bit of detail about our revenues, and again about some of the changes we've made since we presented in February. A reminder, again, that our allocation of revenues is very consistent between years, and that property taxes represents over 3/4 of the revenue of the district. So although we spend a lot of time, both this evening and in other presentations, talking about specific grants or specific programs that are funded through other methods, it really is local property tax dollars that drive the revenue for the district. And so we'll start there. Again, we've now received the final tax extension from both DuPage and Will counties. And I think overall what we want to share tonight and what we're sharing in this slide is really a lot of good news tied to receiving that information. As already mentioned, our revenue budget is now increased by about $700,000 due to strong new property development that came in above our expectations and even what we were hearing from the counties a few months ago. Also, as a result of strong growth in property values for existing properties, we're now looking at the lowest tax rate in at least 12 years of the district, and you can see here going all the way back to 2013. You can see we're significantly lower than we were there, up to 20% of a decrease in just over a decade. Our tax rate is now below 5. So we've kind of lowered it across kind of a significant barrier, that 5 number. You can see we did in 2014 peak at just above a rate of 6. So we've seen some significant decrease in that tax rate over the last 10 years. The chart in the lower right shows our EAV per pupil, or our property wealth per pupil. And again, we've had 11 straight years of growth in that EAV per pupil number. Even in the last couple of years, as our student counts, as our enrollment has increased slightly, this shows we're increasing property value at least at the rate of new students and that are being generated by the new property. And then finally, the final graphic I just want to point out tonight, as part of our Safer, Stronger referendum, we committed to keeping the bond rate at or below 37 cents. The 2024 bond rate is coming in at just under 33 cents, or 11% below the amount that was promised as part of that referendum. So again, I think a lot of good news as we're starting to receive the final information tied to our property tax revenue source. With that said, we do know that property tax bills started arriving in the mail last week, and so this is also the time of year where we start hearing from residents, either directly to administration or to board members, asking, well, you know, how come my property tax bill increased by X percent when you're only saying that the levy increased by a much lower amount? And so I just wanted to talk through that a little bit. Again, we do talk through this each year when we pass the levy, but again, this is a good opportunity to reevaluate that. So as a reminder to the board, the district really only controls the total ask of our property tax levy, and that amount is limited to the Consumer Price Index, as well as any voter-approved referendums. The change in individual property values is something the district is not directly involved in. That is assessed by township assessors. And that's really what determines the allocation of how a large property tax levy, again for the district it's over $350 million, gets allocated across district residents and businesses. What we have seen over the past several years, and a trend that has continued in this year, as we've seen over time, residential property values in this area are very strong. And property values for homeowners continue to grow pretty significantly. At the same time, we see commercial and industrial property not grow at a same rate, and in some cases those property values are even decreasing a little bit. And so what's happened over time is that large pie gets kind of sliced up between all the taxpayers. More and more of that burden is being felt by our residential taxpayers. And so what we're showing here with this graphic tonight, and it's not the best because the math doesn't work out exactly, but we're able to estimate that an average residential tax increase this year was about 3.6%. However, a commercial taxpayer is actually about flat or even seeing a small decrease of about 0.2%. And so even though the total levy increased by 3.2%, which was below the rate of inflation, you can see that impact's not being felt equally by those residents and commercial taxpayers. So this is a trend we've continued to see over the past several years. We actually saw, I think, a wider gap last year even, so it's getting maybe a little better. But again, I think this is a real challenge we have both in articulating our levy and how it works, but also in just recognizing how that burden is being felt by all taxpayers. What we can do about it at the district, I think, again, we don't directly control property values. We don't control directly economic development. But I would continue our board, and I continue to encourage our administration to encourage commercial growth, work with our cities to encourage commercial growth that does not involve tax incentives. And I would encourage our community members who are concerned about this as well to sort of understand this challenge, and again, to work collaboratively with our cities and with our folks in charge of economic development to help tell this story and help tell why commercial industrial development is so critical in 204. Just moving on to the state of Illinois. Update again, not a lot has changed since we spoke in February. We're continuing to follow the state's legislative session. However, a budget's not been voted or even really presented yet. We do expect that by the end of May. It gets significantly more difficult in Illinois to pass a budget if they do not hit the initial May 31st deadline. So we are budgeting for relatively flat funds, so we're budgeting for some additional evidence-based funding funds, but other funding to remain flat. And really one of the challenges that we're seeing is that even though the state's made a commitment to fund EBF, which represents 11% of our total revenue, they've not made the same commitment towards the categoricals, which represent about 4% of our revenue. And so the graph that's shown here is those categoricals and how they're being prorated, or how the amount of revenue that's supposed to be received by school districts is gradually going down each year. And you can see some pretty significant decreases starting with fiscal year 2022, and we project those decreases to continue. There is one specific concern related to the categoricals I did want to make this board aware of tonight. I don't think it's going to impact next fiscal year, but could start impacting fiscal years 2027 and beyond. And I want to spend a minute talking about this because I think it's a really telling story about kind of how when we don't maybe collaboratively solve a problem at the state level over several years, it kind of gets kind of grows and creates issues and maybe some unintended consequences down the line as well. So we used to have about 7 or 8 categoricals, but a lot of them got rolled up into EBF when EBF started in 2017. But the founders of EBF, or the people who really worked hard to find that, they were on a budget deadline, a legislative deadline, and so they left a few pieces of unfinished business, if you will. And one of them that they were pretty transparent about was needing to go back and really look at how some special education programs are funded. And one of the reasons that our private tuition categorical still exists is because they said this really isn't an issue we can solve on this deadline, but we encourage the state to revisit it at a future date. So here we are 7 or 8 years later. It still really hasn't been addressed as part of EBF. And there was an initiative a year or two ago to say, well, in addition to funding private tuition through a categorical, we really should look at some funding sources for public school outplacements as well. So on its face, this made a lot of sense. It creates equity amongst districts that are maybe using a public school outplacement setting and as opposed to a private placement out setting. And so this legislation has already passed. It passed in the last legislative session, I believe. Where the challenge is now is that if that act is not funded, and as of today it is not, the funding source will be the same funding source as the private tuition reimbursement. And what that means is that the categorical proration percentage, which is already starting to tick below 70% for that categorical, is expected to go down to about 40%. And so for a district such as Indian Prairie, which does not really use public outplacements, we would see that decrease in proration without really any additional revenue coming in for those public outplacements. And we're estimating that to have about a $1.5 million impact for Indian Prairie. So that's something that's not built into the forecast we showed this evening. We're optimistic that there's some resolution to this, but at this time this is a significant risk outstanding for the district and for how we fund some of those private outplacements. But on that piece of good news. We'll move on to the federal revenue update. So in February, we presented some of the headlines we're sort of following and some of the news stories that were out. And at that time, we were focused on whether the Department of Education was going to continue to exist or what that would mean potentially for Indian Prairie if the Department of Education was dissolved. And one of the pieces that we talked about was, well, the federal revenue only represents about 3 to 4% of our total revenue. So while it's not insignificant, we tried to put that in perspective a little bit. What we've sort of seen over the last couple months, we've seen that talk die down a little bit, but I just want to share some of the headlines we've seen over the last couple months, which I'll argue kind of have a little indirect impact to the district, and that is things like tariffs, which I think all businesses and consumers are trying to understand their impact right now. We've seen significant uncertainty in the interest rate market with federal, the U.S. Treasury rates increasing and then decreasing and moving around pretty significantly. We've seen some challenges to the municipal bond tax exempt status. And so these are all headlines we're following that maybe don't get the same shock value or that dissolving the Department of Education gets, but could have just as significant impact on our financial operations. So with that said, we are continuing to forecast flat federal revenue. We don't anticipate seeing a federal budget bill until around the 4th of July. That's after the start of the fiscal year. And again, we're following what that tariff impact could be. We were fortunate that we've made some significant technology purchases already. I believe the board was updated that we estimate we saved about $800,000 just based on when we placed our large Chromebook order for the year. But again, we're not going to, that was sort of some good fortune that's not going to continue. We've also started to hear increase for other supplies. Received an email last week that the cost of baseballs are going up and some other sporting goods. So our athletic directors are getting nervous about some of those operations. So we're projecting to sort of see that information come through here just as everybody else is as well. Interest rates, again, we are looking at a significant bond issuance coming up in the next 60 days or so. And so seeing significant uncertainty in interest rates. Our municipal advisor said that the interest rates have not fluctuated this wildly since March of 2020, since COVID. So again, a real unpredictable time to be trying to issue some significant bonds and trying to manage the interest rate market. And then the final piece, which I don't think is likely to happen, but is currently in some discussion at the federal level and would have a very significant impact, is the tax exempt status of municipal bonds. So again, we are currently under the IRS tax code able to issue our bonds with tax exempt status. That means bond holders do not pay federal income tax on those bonds, and as a result, they reward the district with a very favorable interest rate. If that tax status changes, and again, there's some proposals out there to modify it, that could significantly increase the cost of our bonds. And so that's kind of the transition then to talk about our two non-operating funds and really talk about, again, the impact of our Safer, Stronger 204 referendum and what we have planned here both in the medium and long-term future. Again, we have two non-operating funds that are maintained by the district. The focus is the long-term investment in district facilities. That's our capital projects fund, as well as how we're going to repay for bonds and other investments, and that's our debt service fund. There's very limited recurring revenue available for capital, and so capital does come almost exclusively from these non-operating funds. We've made no changes to our debt service fund presentation. Again, the future issue amounts will be determined based on market condition at the time of issuances, with the next issue scheduled for this upcoming July. We are planning on presenting a parameters resolution to the board at the next board meeting that'll give us the authorization to go forward with that issuance. I did want to share this. This is from our municipal advisor, PMA. Just kind of a good graph to again, talk about the variability in the municipal bond market and sort of all the things that we're monitoring as we get closer to that issuance. Again, some of the sort of key things we're looking at now are circled here, including inflation expectations, including the recent trade war or tariffs. But you'll see there's a lot of things here that are outside of the district's control, really, including just our status as a Illinois political entity. That does mean that we pay a little higher interest rate than if we were at in another state. Again, you'll see the challenges tied to Chicago has an impact on Illinois issuers. So a lot of factors that we're monitoring going into that issuance this summer. Moving on to the capital projects, and again, we're going to show this in two separate charts. We're going to start by showing the bond finance capital projects. So again, we issued just under $15 million of bonds in December, and we've already received those proceeds. We are planning on doing a large issue, still planning on about $150 million in July, and that will help fund the next couple years of significant capital work. And then we have two other financings planned at this time in 2027 and 2029 as well. Again, actual bond issuances and expenditures will be updated as some of those projects are finalized. And I'll just put a little sort of tickler out there for our June 9th board presentation, where we will update our plans for Waubonsie, Neuqua, and the Burkett campuses. So we think that's going to be a pretty exciting day to share all the hard work our team's done over the last several months getting ready for these next significant capital projects. So again, this looks a little different than when we presented in February, but this is our locally funded capital projects fund. So again, tonight we're making a recommendation that with the next budget, we transfer just over $12 million into this fund to help with technology upgrades. The remaining budget, we would still, as planned, hold off spending and save to use after we have spent our referendum funds in full. I'll just point out that this concept of sort of transferring to the capital projects fund, this is something we've done in the past. Most recently, this is how our elementary air conditioning project was funded, as well as some other building improvements as well. Again, I don't want to spend too much time this evening on some of the specific technology capital needs. These were shared with the board during an update in the fall from our technology department. But again, the idea is these are a lot of this is work that would need to be funded out of operations if we were not able to address it through capital. And so this is a proposal to start addressing some of these needs through capital. Again, hopefully getting the work done sooner and more efficiently than if we had to do it out of operations. And then this does create long-term operating savings for the district. So before just moving on to the final discussion point about fund balance this evening, I just wanted to bring this chart back as well. Again, this shows that we're really projecting a lot of capital work over the next 7 or 8 years. And again, we're very excited about the opportunity to improve really every building in the district. The first time we're doing a referendum that's going to touch every single building throughout Indian Prairie. But those funds aren't going to last forever. And the bond payments will last about 12 to 15 years after the funds are available for the projects. And so we have started thinking about how are we going to provide for the needs that come up after those funds are spent. And that's part of the reason those local capital funds are not being touched in the immediate term. And it's also plays into the discussion of fund balance as well. So I just want to let the board know that we are cognizant of this, and again, this is a period we really just exited, so we don't want to sort of repeat the challenge we had over the last 10 or 15 years of not having capital funds available to spend, but having the bond payments associated with them still being repaid. And so that just kind of leads us to our discussion about fund balance. And so again, we presented this in February, just what is our fund balance? Again, you'll hear synonyms like reserves or net assets. Our goal is to maintain a fund balance that allows for the financial stability of the district. And our current board policy and state recommendation is about 25% fund balance. And so with us at 39%, again, we recognize it's it's not what I would call extremely high or unreasonably high, but it is an amount where we can start having some strategic discussions about how we can use that fund balance to better serve the district and better serve our students. I'll just make a comment again. It's fund balance is kind of the Goldilocks discussion, where we don't want our fund balance to get too low, to where we're not able to meet the needs of the district on a regular basis. But again, we also don't want it to get too high either, because that is a sign that maybe we're not using our resources in the most appropriate way, in a way that directly impacts our students and our facilities. I was at a conference this last week, and one of the presentations that I did not attend, although I was tempted to see who was in the room, was for districts that are at a point where their fund balance is so high, their taxpayers can now challenge to have some of the money returned, and that's known as the Miller ratio. And so my understanding is that there's 17 districts in DuPage County that have received letters from taxpayers saying that they're too high, and they should be considering returning money to the taxpayers. And so, again, we're not at that level. That would be closer to the 70, 80, 100% fund balances. So we're not there yet. I don't want anybody to perceive that we are. But again, we're also a little bit above where we have what we need to meet the daily, the sort of the annual cash flow needs of the district. And that's why, again, we wanted to bring this conversation back this evening. Again, just to kind of preface the discussion of the recommendation. Again, we've shown this pretty regularly as part of our budget presentations. This is what our fund balance or our cash position looks like throughout the year. And so one of the challenges with being 80% funded by property taxes is that we only receive property taxes twice a year. So in those months, we run large surpluses on a monthly basis, but at the other 10 months of the year, we're running pretty significant deficits. And that's what's shown by kind of the line kind of popping up and reaching a real high point in September, but sort of gradually being spent down all the way until June, when we receive that next tax installment. And so again, as we talk about fund balance, it's important not just to consider what that balance is at year end, but it is important to consider what that balance is throughout the year. And so again, we've really adopted at the district the ISB financial profile score and the target of recognition status as sort of the appropriate benchmark to ensure that we are going to have adequate amount of funds to get us through the school year and have significant reserves to deal with any unforeseen challenges. There's other indicators, for example, our bond rating, and as we've presented in the past, we do have a strong AA bond rating. I would say that of all the metrics out there, whether it's bond rating, whether it's the recognition status, they all seem to fall about at the same place in terms of the goal is a balanced budget, and the goal is to maintain that fund balance percentage of about 25%. And so our recommendation is to continue to target this recognition forecast and to make sure we're going to hit recognition status throughout our 5-year forecast. Again, just a little bit of the specifics on what that profile score entails. It looks at fund balance to revenue ratio. That's 35% of it. Expenditure to revenue ratio is also 35%, so those are by far the largest components shown here. But it does also look at the amount of debt a district has outstanding, both short-term and long-term debt, as well as cash on hand. It takes all those components, assigns a score of 1 to 4, and then based on that score, you fall into the buckets there, with, again, recognition being the highest status awarded. And so just what I wanted to show this evening to kind of conclude the discussion is that we have looked at our financial profile score and how it would hold up over the next 5 years if we move forward with the forecast presented this evening. So as shown here, for last year, we did receive a 4.0 score or in recognition status. That 4 is the highest score available. If we move forward with this 5-year forecast, we would still expect to maintain recognition status. We get a little closer on a few of the metrics, which you can see there. But we would still obtain a score of 3.9 and obtain recognition status. And again, this includes the impact of that $12 million transfer shown earlier, and this includes the impact of all our upcoming borrowings and the capital plan we've detailed. This does leave us about $35 million in the operating fund balance. Our goal for that would be in the medium term, over the next 5 years, for that to be available for contingencies, which is really the main contingency or the main challenge we see is state and federal funding. So that would be available there if there was any delays or revenue shocks coming from either of those revenue sources. And then ideally that would be available for future capital needs. Again, once our referendum funds are spent, and again, that would help close that gap we showed earlier between when our referendum funds are spent versus when the bonds are still being repaid. And so just to wrap up tonight with the next steps, we will continue to update the Board of Education. That includes the referendum projects update I mentioned earlier on June 9th, and it continues, it also does include the bond parameters resolution, which we currently have scheduled for next board meeting on May 19th. We'll have a preliminary 25-26 budget available to present in July, and we'll look for the approval of that budget at either an August or September board meeting. That is required to be approved by September 30th for the 25-26 school year. And then finally, as we do continue to update the board on our referendum projects, we will also be updating our Safer Stronger 204 website as well, so that the community can also see those updates. And so with that, I came in a little over 30 minutes, so about cut out about half the time from last time, and available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rising.
Slide 10, please. Very encouraged by this. The fact that we have lowered our property tax rate by 20% in the past 10 plus years. Super encouraging. I just want to reiterate again, I know you already mentioned it, but people have received their property tax bills and they have gone up. And I wanted to reiterate that we have lived to our promise that we made to the community, that we kept the bond and interest part of the taxes flat. There was no levy on that. Can you remind me what the percentage was that we levied on the operating side in December? Was it 3.4 about, was CPI or something like that?
CPI was 3.4%.
Okay,
yes.
So that if you go to the next slide, I reached out to one of the assessors that is in our district and tried to understand that if 204 is only levying 3.4% on the operations side, and we are only receiving 3.4% from the assessor, why do people's taxes appear to go up more than 3.4%? And you had tried to address that here in the slide. What I found was interesting is that what the Department of Revenue also looks at, that directs the county, is they look at median house sales. So if the house sales were 500,000 one year and it jumped to 560,000 the next year, the Department of Revenue says that the assessor should raise the assessed value, whatever that difference is in percentage. So it's awesome that all of our home values are going up in assessed values. What people don't realize, I think, is that while we're only levying 3.4%, their house values are going up and they're paying more on that assessed value. And then kind of what you mentioned here is when the commercial goes down or when commercial appeals, that burden of everything that the assessor needs to collect, that burden falls more on the homeowner. And yet, District 204 is still only receiving 3.4%. So while it may appear that your taxes went up 8, 9, 10%, 204 is only receiving 3.4%, and we're still lowering the tax rate on top of it. So then the next thing, slide 12, the categoricals. Do you recall the last time that they put money into the categoricals of the state?
They've put, I would categorize it as they've put marginal amounts of new money into the categoricals over the last couple years.
But I think you told us the last budget meeting they weren't going to put any money in the categoricals.
The expectation for this budget is that they are completely flat.
Okay.
Yeah, so same amount as last year, flat. I think over the last couple years they've added slightly to it, but they've not added in a way that keeps up with inflation or keeps up with the rising costs.
Yeah, and that's where I was going, because you kind of mentioned where the private outplacement for special ed is going to cost us about $1.4 million. I would love it if you could maybe work that up because if you look at special ed transportation, it used to be 100% reimbursed. Now it's going to be down to, 62% in fiscal year 26 about. And regular ed transportation went from 98% down to, 70%. I would love to see what that's costing us, because what our costs are going up, our contract costs, and transportation has gone up 9, 10, some districts we've seen as high as 30% cost increase from transportation companies. Yet our money reimbursed from the state keeps getting lower and lower and lower. And there is nothing for us to do to recoup that revenue. We can't say we're going to stop transportation altogether. We have to find that loss in revenue that we're receiving somewhere within our budget. So, and that's nothing we can recoup, even if we can levy 3.4%, because where our transportation is going up 9 or 10%, 3.4% really isn't helping us. So I would love to see those numbers when you have a chance of just what that's going to be impact on us, kind of in next year, and if they keep that categorical money flat. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm Miss Jane.
Thank you, Matt. You always do such a good job giving us a comprehensive review of all the variables at play. And today I thought what was particularly notable in your presentation is helping us discern what we have control over and what we don't, helping us kind of understand what's leading to all the uncertainty, but also how we can be proactive. So overall, thank you for that. Let me see here. If we could go to slide 5 real quick. We had an increase in purchase services, and I think you mentioned this in one of your previous presentations. Can you remind us, provide some examples of what's leading to the higher costs?
Sure. The largest driver of that variance is purchase services. These are, generally speaking, third-party contractual services provided for. You can think of them in lieu of services being provided by our staff. So there are, specifically in the special education space, some service providers we're using in lieu of hiring district employees. And so that variance has been caused by, primarily an increased need of those services. So again, this can be things like speech language pathologists, psychologists, OTPT, even CNAs has been some nursing services has also been an area where we're using that as well. So we're seeing increased demand, while we're still seeing some challenges hiring and filling those positions with employees. And so that's what's created that variance. We've had that. I'll point out we've had that variance for the last couple of years, but it was traditionally offset by a positive variance in salaries. And so this is the first year that we've really had both the trend of purchase services exceeding budget as well as the salaries exceeding budget.
And we also had grant money or some funding to offset some of those costs, if I'm correct, during COVID or years following that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I would have to look. I don't think that's the primary cause for this year specifically, but that is true that when we were running, specifically with the ESSER programming, we were receiving, for a while, it seemed like every couple weeks we'd receive a new state grant or federal grant funded through ESSER dollars. And that would create a variance on the expense side, but it would be offset by some additional revenue. So again, I don't think that's what's causing this year, although there may be some small pockets of that I can check. But that was definitely something in past years.
Okay. Moving on to slide 7. Really happy to see a balanced budget forecasted, and also the explanation of how we could be comfortable at a 32% fund balance. I've needed that explanation, so I really appreciate that. On slide 8, I also appreciate us being able to hold on to some of our full-timers and finding a way to do that. I know we're always looking to try to keep our full-time positions. I guess my last question goes back to what Board Member Rising ended on with slide number 12 and the concerns around that. Drop from 70% funding to possibly a 40% or 62% or 69%. I know there's so much uncertainty on how we might fulfill the gap of potentially a $1.5 million dollars of how it might impact us. Do you know of a path to resolution around this, or what's being done, or what we might find out in the coming months? That might give us more clarity.
Sure. We're not going to get more clarity tonight, but I'll talk through some of the paths forward. So, to be clear, this again, some of the unintended consequences. This, by passing this act, if it's funded, it creates it's a win for districts across the state. If it's not funded, it creates a winners and losers scenario. And what we've kind of found through some discussions and just some comparing data is, generally speaking, it's the smaller districts that are winners with this, because they're the ones that send a lot of their students to the public outplacements. That's generally the use of co-ops. So they're actually kind of, even if it's only 40%, right now they're getting 0. So they're kind of okay with that. It's the larger unit districts that are supporting, that have the capabilities internally to support a specific subset of students, which we do through our self-contained programming. And then when we're not able to do that, that's when we look to the private placement tuition. So this is kind of creating a winners and losers scenario across the state. And I think it's been at some discussions I've had with the unit districts is where this issue or this concern has really arisen over the last couple of months. So, specifically with our association with LUDA is, I think, where our best chance to get some legislative understanding or potential relief is going to come. I think, I don't want to speak too out of turn or too much in hypotheticals. The reality is we want to provide the best solution for the student's needs, whether that is an internal placement, a public placement, an outplacement, whether that's in their current home school. I think our goal is to provide the right solution for that student in as least restrictive environment as possible, right? And it's legislation like this that sometimes makes that challenging because, and again, on the other side, there's districts that correctly said, look, we have the students with the same needs, but because we're not able to serve them internally, we're not benefiting potentially, or because we're not able to access that private tuition placement, we're not seeing the financial. So that's where I wanted to start the story with. The real solution is, how do we tie the revenue to the student need on the front end, not have it be about where they were placed.
Yeah.
Again, not something that we're going to solve tonight, but I think potentially, if through this, if we're able to advocate effectively, maybe there is some solution there. And we could, with that said, we could look at joining a cooperative. We could look at partnering with other cooperatives if the finances just become so, make that a necessity. But those are all paths that in some ways are options. But I think the first thing is really just awareness, because this is an issue that's kind of come up a little bit pretty quickly over the last couple of weeks. So I don't know. Dr. Talley looked like he was going to say something, but no, maybe not. Okay.
Oh.
All right. He was ready to save me if I misspoke, but okay.
Thank you for answering that. That definitely helps me understand the situation a little bit better. That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Deming.
Interesting enough, I had that, I wanted to start on slide 12, but the same one. So, but I think you may have answered, and I don't want to go down a path where you're kind of indicating that maybe we don't really know, because I was going to ask, what are our options if, private placements, and I'm certain we don't, that probably, you explained, you gave us some explanation, so I hope that it doesn't, I just hope that it doesn't come to that. Slide 5, and where we were looking at the 13 FTEs, and I don't know whether it's Dr. Talley, or can you share a little bit where we wound up with those?
Yeah, where we were 13 above budget from
what we had planned.
Yeah, so one source, maybe the primary source, was core classroom FTE at K-5. So as our enrollment has grown a little bit, and we did, with the focus on trying to still maintain our lower class sizes we put in place a couple years ago, there was the need to add some core classroom FTE. Some of that is based on enrollment increases. Some of that I'll just call unlucky math. So there are certain numbers, certain cohort numbers where, I'll just 60 is the one Dr. Talley always uses. I always use something in the set. But yeah, 60 is a tough one because, in some, 2 classes of 30 is really high. 3 classes of 20 is a little low. And so but we don't control if 60 kids show up to a second grade to become second graders at one of our elementary schools. So some of that variance can just be between years. Just how some of the numbers fall. One of the things to kind of ensure that we're maybe a little bit better prepared, we've budgeted for some additional core classroom at K-5 again this year, above what even maybe the enrollment forecast would project. So we're trying to kind of adjust a little bit and kind of learn from that discrepancy last year. But that was about half of it. And then, again, really student-specific needs on the special education side. I would say would probably be the second largest cause. And I think that's most, if not all of that 13.
From a standpoint of that focus on what our students need in the educational, that academic aspect, the ability to provide what we need for our students is so critical. And it's interesting because we've been looking at, for a while we looked at a drop in numbers, and we've seen just a little incremental. It's not huge, right, but we've continued to see a little bit of growth, more so necessarily than we thought. So
yeah, I mean, I'd say one of the things we had a period, as you mentioned, from 2012 to about 2019 or really about 2021, where our enrollment decreased slightly each year, and we were able to sort of reallocate some core classroom FTE to fill some of the emerging needs we've seen over the last 10 years in the special education space, the social emotional space, and then in the EL space. And so we kind of got, a little used to that as being a source for some of those added positions. And then over the last year or two, now we've seen increasing enrollment. It's like, well, wait, we don't have that ability, and so that has that's made some of the discussions and challenges as we go through budget, as we go through staffing, a little challenging. But I think it's also led to some really good conversations across levels and at the district level about really ensuring our resources are being allocated as efficiently as possible and making sure that we are student specific in how we're allocating resources. And I think overall we'd love to have more staff. We'd love to have more funding, but I think we're doing a pretty good job of allocating what we do have.
One of the things that I'd be interested in seeing and discussing as we get into budget further discussions is really as we prepare to continue looking at our mental health resources. There was some information that some of the K through 12 mental health support financial resources might drop, and wondered if that was anything that was going to would specifically impact us. And just wanted to see, in the budget forecast, where we might stand from a mental health.
If you're referring to like state or federal funding for that, we're not anticipating any changes to our funding, and I think our staffing in those areas is relatively consistent for next year.
Perfect, thank you. And then, slide 11, I thought we've already mentioned it, but the ability to, if there's anything, that, I don't know, and maybe this really says it, but that can help us continue to really advocate for and share the need for us just to see more economic development, that commercial side of the house. As we're talking with, legislators and council and county personnel, this is really so important to make sure that we continue, as you've already stated, the tax impact, but really see how that shift has occurred and the ability to see more commercial development come into.
I'll work with our team, and I'll just I meant to mention it the first time around, and this gives me an opportunity to mention. I have a great team member, Sharon Werdelack, whose daughter was actually honored tonight as a Grow Your Own, who's really gotten a chance to dive into some of this data. Again, this isn't information we receive; it's housed at the county. So, but it is public, and so it's just really through sort of. Good work and really just getting familiar with systems and just putting the time in, we're able to start accumulating some of this data. So that is something we'll continue to put together. Again, tax bills came out on Thursday, May 1st, and we were already able to kind of do a sample of residents throughout the district, businesses throughout the district to kind of get some of these numbers. So I think we'll be more capable than we have been in the past to kind of really put data behind it. I think it's a story we've told. I think anecdotally we hear it, whether it's from our residents or from our businesses, but it's something that we are able to put some data to if we're kind of given the time and if there's an interest. So we'll continue to do that.
There is. Thank you.
Ms. Gentz.
Thank you very much again for your presentation. I really do appreciate the fact that on slide 13 you touched on the effect of the tariff increases, everywhere from technology to sports equipment, and how that might affect everything. Honestly, you answered most of my questions throughout your presentation, but one thing I did just wonder on slide 11. And I think this is just as I'm still getting to understand, taxes, commercial taxes and such. What would account for that very small decrease, but still a decrease in the commercial tax?
Yeah, without being being privy to all the
Right.
information that our assessors are seeing. Board Member Rising shared a little bit about the mechanics of it. It's complicated. I would say it is tied to general market conditions, though.
Okay.
Challenges are, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong
Right.
with it or inaccurate about it, but the reality
Just
is
happens.
that commercial properties are still struggling a little bit. That includes office space, and we've seen obviously a change in work patterns that's impacted the office market. That includes commercial storefronts. That includes some of our big box retailers that are continuing to be challenged by Amazon and different spending patterns. There is the reality that commercial taxpayers tend to have a little bit more sway with the assessor, whether that's through appeals and other things to keep that number a little lower. But I think that may be some of it, but I think most of it is just the reality. And again, that speaks to the need to really emphasize and focus and do what we can as a school board to support our local economic development.
Absolutely, yes. And I apologize, I stepped out, so I must have stepped out during that part with Mr. Rising. So sorry for the repeat there. But I did want to reiterate also what Board Member Jane said. It is at least one piece of good news, that we were able to, instead of reducing by 20 FTEs, 10. So I feel like we should take a win where we can right now, especially with so much uncertainty. And I just really want to thank you for all the work that all of you do, especially right now when there is so much that we don't know, so many unknowns as far as funding goes. So thank you.
Mr. Karubas.
I've got 3 points. One, I think there's an opportunity for us to make our operations more in line with board policy. And I'm struggling with page 5, where our expenditures exceed our budget amount. The board policy that is referenced at the beginning of the presentation talks about the amount budgeted as the expenditure in each of the funds is the maximum amount that may be expended for each category. So I know we've operated this way for a long time, but our expenditures are exceeding our budgeted amount. So ultimately, it washes out because we're fortunate enough to have revenue that balances it. And $4 million as a percentage isn't a large part of our budget, but it's $4 million. But I think the process is really what's important, so that we mirror it more in line with the policy, is that when we exceed the budgeted amount of expenditures, we need to have something done or in place where, I'm not suggesting we have a whole budget hearing and adopt a new budget, but if the policy and law says that we have the budget and that's the most you can spend, and we spend in excess, then we need to develop a process that makes it more clear rather than page 5 of a budget presentation. I don't think that is enough. So I'm not proposing any solutions. I've looked at this practice for the last 10 years and haven't raised it up. But it's striking me now as I'm seeing all this red. So I invite administration to take a look at that and see if there's ways to make it better. Page 7. So I just want to point out you have projected budgets in revenue for the state EBF, evidence-based funding. So going out for the next 5 years, our expected revenue from the EBF is going to go from $43 million to $45 million. In each of those years, the state of Illinois is going to put in $350 million, $350 million, $350 million, and we're going up $1 million. Is that about right?
That's about right, yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then this transfer, page 8. I'm trying to wrap my head around the transfer to capital for technology. At the last presentation, we talked about, setting aside maybe $42 million for future capital needs and contingencies, and setting aside $12 million for deferred operational supports for a total of $54 million. And now I'm hearing a different recommendation. Kind of what's going on, what's happened since February. How's this better? I know I'm just raising this now, and I didn't in advance of the meeting. But I think the transfer to capital is important. I see value in it. I think it's something we should do. But from my perspective, it seems like we're struggling with coming up with the number and the earmark, so to speak. I've sat and we've had a consultant that gave us information that we're hundreds of $millions in deferred maintenance needs to get spent. So I recognize there's a need to set aside money for deferred maintenance. But why technology? Why a contingency? So give me reasons on why we should bucket it, why we should not just throw it in the capital account, and kind of the dollar amount. I need some more information to have a justification of that. I'm hearing two different things in two different presentations, and I need some more.
All right. Yeah, we can bring that back next time. I will just emphasize the last, and the numbers are different. So that point is taken.
I'm taking directionality stuff.
But we are talking that $42 million that you mentioned earlier. That's sort of this last bullet point here about the $35 million, which our recommendation at this time is still to maintain it in the operating fund, but with the hope that at a future date it would be available to be transferred in for capital needs. The concern is just with some of the revenue uncertainty at this time. Just don't feel that fiscal year 2026 is necessarily the right time for that transfer.
And that would make some sense to me. If dropping the $35 million would drop us down to 25%.
That's the
fund
delta.
ratio,
That's the
and
delta
then we all get a little nervous with being that close. So I can appreciate
that. $35 million is the amount that after that $12 million transfer, and after we run out the next 5 years of a projection, that $35 million is the excess above 25%. But yes, if the general direction that we propose this evening is in line, we'll work on some specifics for when the budget is presented as a tentative budget in July.
Thanks.
Thank you. So thanks for everybody for all of the questions and comments. I always look at the slides that talk about the overall forecast and operating funds, and I like to look at the state and federal to see what changed. And you actually increased like federal a bit, like it's not a lot, but it's just still, I was a little curious, like why, given all the stuff going on at the federal level, that you increased that.
Yeah, very, very perceptive. The one federal program we did increase from last time slightly and do have small increases annually on is the food service program. That's just the projected cost of the meal reimbursement rate keeping up with CPI. There are corresponding increases on the expense side for those as well. So that is the specific increase noted there.
On the state level, we've had a little bit of a busy couple of weeks as board members, so I haven't followed this as closely as I would have, but I know that the city of Chicago was down in Springfield lobbying for their revenue and their needs, and also has been lobbying, I think, to change to be Tier 1 again, or be treated like Tier 1. Did anything come out of that, or?
Not that I'm aware of. No. I mean, this is sort of a The good news is that so far, at least, the state has seemed to hold true to the commitment that the EBF is going to be funded and that there's not going to be significant additional funding streams added, that their number one commitments to EBF, and that they're not going to look at making changes to EBF that may cater to CPS specifically. So that's kind of the good news. The bad news, as you could maybe pick up, is also that, as Board Member Cruz mentioned, that $350 million commitment to EBF still only generates about $400,000 to $500,000 of incremental dollars for Indian Prairie. So, better than it could be, I guess, but still not really moving the needle for our district.
But I know we're considering writing a note to our legislative friends about our needs, just like Chicago's lobbying for their needs, but more to come on that. So I do appreciate the presentation. I like that you went over the federal and state issues, as well as repeating the tax implications and how important it is for our district to continue to lobby for commercial, non-tax incentive businesses in our group, and how it's a little bit frustrating to see how much burden is pushed on residential taxpayers, but that was, it was interesting to see the numbers you had on the slide that everybody, Ms. Dumming, everyone pointed out, because we've talked about it before, but we never saw any numbers like that showed us. So that was very important. And the whole transfer to capital, and I think that was a good discussion also to see what more we can see there. So thank you very much for the information, and let's see how our budget continues here.
Great. Thank you.
Interesting times. Do any of the students need us to sign anything? No? Okay. Okay. All right. You guys go sign, and then we'll keep going. Okay. We will now review the results of the official canvassing for the returns from the DuPage County Election Commission of April 1st, 2025 school board election, presented by Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. No action is needed to be taken by the board, but we are required to review the canvass of the election results from DuPage County, which is our primary county, and these results include Will County. These results are in board docs. I will now review the results from the election in ballot order. So, Lori Donahue, total number of votes in her favor, 11,456. Allison Fostick, 10,279 votes. Susan Taylor Dimming, 10,767 votes. Sapna Jain, 9,765 votes. And Allison Albert, 6,362 votes, meaning that Ms. Donahue, Ms. Fostick, Ms. Taylor Dimming, and Ms. Jain were the winners of the board election. And now I'll turn it back to you.
So now I need a motion to approve to appoint Dr. Talley as President Pro-Tem for the special organizational meeting until a new board president is elected.
I'll make a motion, Dr. Talley's favorite time of the year, or every 2 years. I'll make a motion that the Board of Education approves to appoint Dr. Adrian Talley as President Pro-Tem for the special organizational meeting until a new board president is elected as presented.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay, Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rising?
Yes.
Ms. Gintz?
Yes.
Mr. Karubas?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
And Ms. Jain?
Yes.
The motion passes. I now need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.
Yeah, you can put me as a second.
If any current members would like to reaffirm your oath, you will please join us now. I'll go to the podium over there, and then and everyone will need to stand, those who are going to reaffirm.
Print copies for us.
We need to read the first part.
No, not at all.
So please raise your hand and follow along. I state your name, do solemnly swear to or affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the school board of Indian Prairie School Community.
We don't have a copy.
Oh, you don't?
They don't.
Can we just say our name?
All right, so hold on. Let's try this again. I state your name.
I, Sabna Jane,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
of member of the school board of Indian Prairie Community Unit School District 204
of the
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the laws of the State of Illinois,
and the laws of the State of Illinois,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I further swear
I further swear
that
that
I shall respect taxpayer interests
I shall respect taxpayer interests
by serving as a faithful protector
by serving as a faithful protector
of the school district's assets.
of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect
I shall encourage and respect
the free expression of opinion
the free expression of opinion
by my fellow board members
by my fellow board members
and others who seek
and others who seek
a hearing before the board
a hearing before the board
while respecting the privacy
while respecting the privacy
of students and employees.
of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member
I shall recognize that a board member
has no legal authority
has no legal authority
as an individual
as an individual
and that decisions can be
and that decisions can be
made only by majority
made only by a majority
vote at a public board meeting.
vote at a public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions
I shall abide by a majority of decisions
of the board
of the board
while retaining the right
while retaining the right
to seek changes
to seek changes
in such decisions
in such decisions
through ethical and constructive channels.
through ethical and constructive channels.
As part of the Board of Education,
As part of the Board of Education,
I shall accept the responsibility
I shall accept the responsibility
for my role in the equitable
for my role in the equitable
and quality education
quality education
of every student in the school district.
of every student in the school district.
I shall foster with the board
I shall foster with the board
extensive participation of
extensive participation of
the community,
the community,
formulate goals,
formulate goals,
define outcomes,
find outcomes,
and set the course for
and set the course for
Indian Prairie.
Indian Prairie.
I shall assist in establishing
I shall assist in establishing
a structure and an environment
a structure and environment
designed to ensure
designed to ensure
all students have
all students have
the opportunity to attain
the opportunity to obtain
their maximum potential
their maximum potential
through a sound organizational framework.
through a sound organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure
I shall strive to ensure
a continuous assessment
a continuous assessment
of student achievement
of student achievement
and all conditions
all conditions
affecting the education of
affecting the education of
our children
our children
in compliance with state laws.
in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key
I
I shall serve as education's key
advocate on behalf of
advocate on behalf of
students in our community schools
students in our community schools
to advance the vision of
to advance the vision of
Indian Prairie School District.
Indian Prairie School District.
And I shall strive to work together
And I shall strive to work together
with the district superintendent
with the district superintendent
to lead the school district
to lead the school district
toward fulfilling the vision
toward fulfilling the vision
the board has created,
the board has created,
fostering excellence for
fostering excellence for
every student in the areas
every student in the areas
of academic skills,
of academic skills,
knowledge,
citizenship,
and personal development.
and personal development.
You may be seated, and congratulations.
Congrats, you guys. Let me thank you, Michelle. Yes. I did get a couple of pictures. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rising.
Here.
Mr. Carubas.
Here.
Ms. Donahue.
Here.
Ms. Jane.
Here.
Ms. Demme.
Present.
And Ms. Gintz.
We have a quorum. It's now time for public comment for agenda items. 30 minutes is allowed for public comments, and each person is limited to 3 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups, and as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comments represent the voice and opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from the board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by an administrator as appropriate. Although this is not required, it's helpful for board members to know whether the comments and concerns we hear are being raised by residents, so we ask that you state if you live in the district and if you currently have children in our school. Are there any speakers? No.
No.
Okay. Nominations for president. Nominations are now in order for the office of president.
I hereby nominate Lori Donahue for president.
Lori Donahue is nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of president? Hearing no further nominations, the nominations for the office of president are closed. I need a motion that the Board of Education vote the lone candidate for the position of president for the Board of Education. I need a motion.
Oh,
Well, I moved it. Turn your mic.
You nominated, now I need a motion. I need a motion that the Board of Education vote the lone candidate for the position of president for the Board of Education.
I move that the Board of Education nominate Lori Donahue as president.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Lori Donahue being the only candidate nominated for the office of president. Michelle, will you call the roll?
Ms. Jane.
Yes.
Ms. Gintz.
Yes.
Ms. Demme.
Aye.
Mr. Rising.
Aye.
Mr. Carubas.
Yes.
Good. The vote is 5 in favor, 1 abstention. By receiving a majority of the votes, Lori Donahue is elected president of the board, and I now give up my power.
You dig.
Nice job.
Yeah, well done. Okay, nominations are now in order for the office of vice president.
I nominate Allison Fosdick for vice president. Do you want me to make a motion? Oh, Sapna Jane. Oh, okay. Sure, I know what's going on. I nominate Sapna Jane for the role of vice president.
Okay, are there any other
definitely do
nominations
that.
for the office of vice president?
She's got 2.
Okay.
Just so you have backup.
Okay, Sapna Jane is nominated. Okay, hearing no further nominations, the nominations for office of vice president are closed. I now need a motion that the Board of Education vote the lone candidate to the position of vice president.
Make a motion that the Board of Education approve Sapna Jane as vice president as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rising.
Yes.
Mr. Carubus.
Yes.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
Ms. Donahue.
Aye.
Ms. Gintz.
Yes.
And Ms. Jade.
I abstain.
Yeah. The vote is 5 approved, 1 abstain in favor of Sapna Jane being vice president. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, nominations are now in order for the office of secretary.
Okay, that I do nominate Allison Fosdick for. I promise.
All right. Allison Fosdick is nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Okay. Hearing no further nominations, the nominations for the office of secretary are closed. I need a motion that the Board of Education vote the lone candidate to the position of secretary.
I move that the Board of Education approve Allison Fosdick as Secretary of the Board of Education.
I second.
Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carubus.
Yes.
Ms. Jane.
Yes.
Mr. Rising.
Yes.
Ms. Gintz.
Yes.
Ms. Donahue.
Yes.
And Ms. Deming.
Aye.
So there's
Do it.
give us 6 of us in favor, 6-0, and Allison Fosdick is elected Secretary of the Board of Education. Now we have the appointment of the Illinois Association of School Board Governing Board Representative. I need a nomination.
I'll make a, oh, do you have to make a nomination, or can we just make an appointment? Nomination first?
Appointment, nomination.
I'll nominate Katie Gentz as IASB Governing Board Representative.
Are there any other nominations for appointment of the Illinois Association of School Board Governing Board of Representative? Hearing no further nominations, the nominations for the appointment of Illinois Association of School Board Governing Board Representative are closed. I need a motion that the Board of Education vote the lone candidate to the position of the appointment of the Illinois Association of School Board Governing Board Representative.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Education appoint Katie Gentz as the IASB Governing Board Representative.
Second.
Michelle, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rising.
Yes.
Mr. Carubus.
Yes.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
Ms. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Jane.
Yes.
And Ms. Gintz.
Abstain.
So the vote is 5-4 and 1 abstain in favor of Katie Gentz being the majority of votes is appointed to the Illinois Association School Board Governing Board of Representatives for the Board of Education.
Congratulations.
Good job, everybody.
All right, we got through that. So I want to thank everyone.
barely,
No, thank you all. And I also want to thank Ms. Deming for being my excellent partner and vice president.
Yes.
So
Good
thank you
job,
so much. So now I need a motion to adjourn.
Nope. Motion to recess into
Recess to
executive session.
executive session.
I will
Okay,
make
need
a motion.
to-
I will make a motion to recess the executive session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee or public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted in accordance with this act.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Michelle, you have to call the roll. Yeah.
Mr. Rising.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Carubus. Ms. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
Ms. Jane.
Yes.
And Ms. Gintz.
Yes.
Okay, we are approved to go back into executive session. Thank you.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, do we?
I don't think so. No, it's just the ladies.
Thank you for asking those. The way I am, I'd walk out before.
And since we voted on these before, you changed.
Superintendent Secretary.